Hello, everybody. If it's Wednesday, it's sort of Warhammer. We're going to talk about it a little, but mostly we're going to talk about the newest issue of Snarl, out now, available from Snarling Badger Studios. And Uncle Adam is here to help me talk about it. There it is. Boom. How
Boom.
you doing, Adam?
Not too bad. Not too bad.
Yes, the
Yeah.
newest issue of Snarl is out, and you might ask yourself, what is this snarl thing you speak of? What the heck does
hmm
that mean? Well, Adam, would you like to tell them what snarl is?
Sure. So the company is called Snarling Badger Studios. That's the company that Vince and I started back in 2021 when we
Oops.
first produced Rain and Hell. And I've kind of wanted to do a zine for a long time, and I had this thought sometime in 2022, maybe late, maybe early 2023, that we should try to do some sort of a zine thing. And the downside is that we can't sell them to you printed because the company that we work with doesn't do this type of binding. They call it saddle stitch, where they fold it in half and then they put the staples in there like comic books and stuff. But we can still make it as a PDF, which then you can just look at on your phone or your tablet or whatever. But you could also print it out if you want to. We give you two versions, one that is
Right.
one page at a time and one page that's all laid out in that weird way that pages are laid out, where you've got page 36 over here and page 1 over there and all that kind of stuff, and it's all laid out so you can print it out and everything and then fold it and staple it and have a great time with it. It brings back the old punk rock zine, but instead we fill it with gaming stuff about our games, and we give you a new one as well.
That's right. For me, this is like what this really is. And by the way, if I'm like slightly off tonight, I just want to warn everybody. I got new glasses today. I got my prescription updated for the first time in like 16 years. So right now it feels like I'm a little zonked. Like my brain is like, what is happening? And it's struggling really hard to keep up. So at any rate, I apologize for that. But the here's what it really is for me. The reason I wanted to do this, that when Uncle Adam and I first talked about it, the reason that really sold me was when I grew up with like Dragon Magazine and old White
Same
Dwarf
here.
back in the day and stuff like that. Like Scry and Inquest, Duelist. There was lots of there was these magazines for all of the games that I played, and the reality was you'd get one of those magazines, and like I loved opening a Dragon magazine and being like, here's a new article for Dark Sun, and here's 20 new potions, right? And here is a kit for a character, and here's a new little mini like entire thing for building castles. Sure, why not? Okay,
Hmm
and like so what I wanted to recreate here, what my main goal was when we were talking about doing this, was I wanted to have a method for us to deliver both one new smaller games that were like interesting and unique and different than other stuff we had written. Maybe were a little more experimental, but also just frankly weren't big enough concepts to be like a 60 to 100 page book, right? And at the same time, I also wanted to make sure that we had that methodology for just like providing the quick hits for keeping our existing games, quote unquote, alive.
Well,
Not
God
that they,
forbid. Yeah.
yeah,
I
exactly.
mean,
Because we all
other than
know a
you
game,
can't
if
have a
nothing's
dead
being published for a game, it's dead, as we
dead
know.
dead as a doornail.
Yeah, but actually, I
Hmm
just like making new content because I enjoy those games, and it's a nice chance to go back and revisit them and enrich the world with additional options, right?
hmm
And so this lets us do both of those things. So that's what Snarl is. And, if you're interested in it at any point in this show, don't forget you can just look down in the description. There is a link to snarlingbadger.com. And if you go there, you will find Snarl as well as everything related to what we're talking about. You can find the link there to purchase the book. And it's only $8 for the 36-page PDF. Just for as a quick rundown here at the top, we'll talk about it more later, but as a quick rundown here at the top, it has the new game, The Great Goblin Argle Bargle, in it. We will talk about all these elements in the main topic of the show. It also has an expansion for Death Wizards with fresh recruits, new 4 new undead you can summon. It has new equipment for Majestic 13. and it has a new full mini adventure, 3 linked adventures that can be done solo or co-op to continue the ongoing story in Rain and Hell. So that carries on from the Oculus Sphere, our previous solo and co-op thing that we published. So we'll talk about all of that more later. But like I said, link below, $8, full PDF, a full game plus 3 expansion contents for our existing game. Oh my God, it's so much value. The value, people.
Well, and the last time that we did this a year ago, it was 28 pages, and it was a game, and then only 2 expansions. So we've added more pages, one more expansion. We're still charging $8 in this economy. I mean, come on.
Yeah, that was exactly those. I will say those 8 pages were at my behest against Adam's will. So like, not that he doesn't want to deliver to you guys. It was just like, we are really pushing the limit of what this kind of like thing you print out and have to like fold and staple is going to get to.
Yeah, you get they call it what do they call it? Creep? I think they call it creep in the industry, where the middle parts of the pages, and you get this kind of, it's a whole, exactly. Yeah. You get that kind of pointy bit going out from the inside pages and stuff. So we do get to a point where we shouldn't go above 36 pages if we can help it.
Yeah, I mean, exactly. We're at our limit. Heretic, it's a good question about Majestic 13. The aliens movement is like, you're saying they're really fast or they're always doing the same thing? I need to know more of what you mean. Because that's why they have sort of 3 different charts, one for each type of alien, and then kind of their actions that they take. But yes, it is intentional that they are ridiculously fast. That is very much intentional. Yes, it was meant to be part of the design that like these things can just sweep across the entire board like so ridiculously fast. So there you go. Hey, very cool. New FLGS just opened and already got all the Snarling Badger games in stock. Check out The Crypt next time anyone is in Providence, Rhode Island. Very cool. The Crypt.
Yeah, I had a conversation with, now I can't think of the names. I'm bad with names. But I had a conversation with the person from The Crypt. We talked on the phone a little bit because usually when a retailer wants to sell our games, we have a form on the website down way in the bottom in the footer. So if you want your local game to sell our games, you bug them and say, hey, you can just go to the website, and then they can order them from us. And well, actually, they're ordering them from War Game Vault, and then they get a discount, and then they can sell it at normal price. That's how commerce works, as it turns out. But I always want to make sure in that form that either I'm going to be calling them, so that I know that it's not just a person who wants a discount on the games, or I'm going to be hitting them up on the messaging for their Facebook group. They have an option of which way, and that one was a call. And so I called and chatted, and then they were like, wait, are you Uncle Adam? And I was like, yes. And then we chatted for a little bit longer. It was nice.
Very nice. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Oh, very good. And also, I see your question, JC. Is Argle Bargle a reference to Ridley Walker? No, it is not. We'll explain that whole story when we get to it. I do want to hit some normal stuff here first. Let me grab my timestampy book and all of that so we can timestamp this stuff for people. Boop-a-doop-a-doo. Here we go. Okay. We're going to still do some normal segments here, of course, because, why not? So let's start with some news stuff, shall we? Because, Warhammer's still happening. We got a little rumor engine. Adam, it's some kind of floating servo skull thing with a 40K crap on it. They, in the rumor engine in the text, were like, it's boring, we're sorry. It was like literally what the text amounted to. That's not exactly what they said, but I'm reading between the lines there, right?
Yeah. Paraphrasing.
Absolutely hilarious. So boring, 40K, don't care. All right, great. We can move past that.
Oh, that's a Lord High Low Inquisitor. It's a high and low Inquisitor.
Absolutely. It's the hi ho, it's off to work we go Inquisitor. They're shorter, but they have long beards. And then on the good news side, they did announce that the Battle Force boxes are all going to be up for sale. These are generally a pretty good deal. Looking at them, they're all about 30-ish% off if you were to buy all of the boxes individually. So not bad.
The Christmas boxes?
Yep, this is the Christmas boxes.
Gotcha.
That's right. And all the AOS ones this year are decent enough. I quite like the Iron Jaws one because I do think that 20 Ardboys and the 6 Brute Ragers or whatever and a Big Pig are all actually good units that you would want to run in an Ironjaw's army. And like, so depending on where you are with your army, if you don't have that stuff yet, if you don't have like a second Big Pig, or like, you can use a lot of Brute Ragers. So I think that's all fine. Most of them I thought were pretty decent. So especially if you've got a local store, maybe giving you an additional discount. Maybe you've got somebody who does a 15% off or 20% off or something like that. Hey, that's going to be a real good deal. So I hope some people get some of those under the tree if that's what you wanted. So yeah, very cool. And that's basically the news, other than a few simple things. Tomorrow I leave for Italy because I'm going to be, what's that?
The big boot.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah.
The first time I'll be returning to my homeland, as it were. And I'm going to Monte San Savino this weekend. So I'll do some updates and stuff like that from there. I hope to see, I hope to see a bunch of people there, a bunch of amazing art. I'm bringing a few pieces with me. Sam is also going to be there with me, so it should be a good time.
For those that don't know, you're not just going on a vacation in some place called Monte San Savino. It's a big miniature painting art thing. Not exactly a competition. I mean, there are awards, I guess, right? To some degree.
There are awards, yeah. Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Yep.
And so, but it's not really like the point of it as much. Not like
it's. I mean, like you can display in a couple different ways. I think certainly people to win like best in show at Monte San Savino is like a lifetime dream. It's and far harder and in my estimation more prestigious than winning a Slayer Sword or something like that. Nothing, no shade on the Slayer Sword. Like I'm not saying that. That is also a lifetime dream, nearly impossible task. Both of those things are people operating at the absolute pinnacle. I'm just saying which one do I think is like legitimately more impressive, at least to me. But not that I'm capable of either, so that's fine. I brought stuff. I'm gonna enter it. I expect nothing. The competition level at somewhere like Monte is really, really high, and even though it's open system, I know that like there are going to be just a ton of painters there who I just think are simply a lot better than me. But that's okay. It's still going to be a good time. So look for some updates. I'll probably share some stuff on social media. My social media is up there. It's up there in the corner. There it is. You'll probably see stuff in those places. That's also that Twitter one is also Blue Sky. I need to put a little Blue Sky logo.
Yeah, you're gonna have to put a Blue Sky
because it's at Warhammer Weekly in both places. I had to get over to Blue Sky quick, snap up that I couldn't let anybody get Warhammer Weekly from me. Okay, but nope, I've got it. I'm sitting. We're good. So you can follow me there in both places, as well as on Insta. So cool. All right. Yeah, that's kind of all the news, and then I'll be back beginning of next week. So just popping over for the weekend. No big deal. Hey, thank you, Blue985. Said good evening. I've said it before, but congrats on the new Goblin game release. Absolutely. Okay. So let's share some stuff here. We can be a little indulgent with this, Adam, if we want. But
can we talk a little bit about the thumbnail?
Well, let's save it. We'll get there for that. Let's go to. I'm just gonna burn through our little normal segments here.
Okay.
I will bring the thumbnail back up. What do we want to share with people, Adam? As far as pick of the week goes, where do you want to direct people's attention?
Gosh, I should have thought of something.
I've got something ready to go if you want a minute to think.
I've got something. I would tell you to go and check out, because again, this is how we roll, right? Like we're game designers. We have a game company, and so I'm going to tell you to go look at a different competing game company. Game. It's a game. I don't remember the name of that. It's like a person's last name, and I don't remember what it is, the name of the company. But the game is called 1490 Doom, DOOM, 1490 Doom. And it is a fun little skirmish game where you play on a 2-foot by 2-foot board, and they highly suggest you make the board round, which is a thing you don't see too frequently. Yeah. Each person who plays has 3 models.
Like a really big compass.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Or you just use a pencil and a piece of string, and then you do it that way too. But yeah, you play with your entire warband is 3 models, and it is a fantasy style game where, yeah, I mean it's like fantasy, but it's in roughly the late 1400s, kind of, as far as like technology and things like that. There is this it's Heretic. It's Buer Games. I don't know if I know how to pronounce that properly. But anyway, I'm hoping that's close. But yeah, basically the concept is you want to get by the end of the game, you need to be as high as possible on the map, and so you build like towers and things. And there's a lot of rules about climbing. There's a lot of rules about falling off of things. You get pushed off of things. There's a lot of that. There is this mist, this seeping up from the earth, and it is killing people. And so that's why you need to be as high as possible towards the end of the game. And
Nice.
but yeah, it's got some cool visual design to it as well. I think the layout and the artwork are cool. I believe at some point they're going to make it so you can make your own characters, but they give you a whole bunch of different like archetype pre-built characters. So it's not a situation of like, oh, I'm going to like min-max this and min-max that. You're like, oh, I take this guy or I take that guy or I take whatever. And then you kind of go from there. But it's always 3. And it's kind of cool. So yeah.
Very nice.
Mm-hmm.
My pick of the week is going to be a shout out to the Poor Hammer Squad. Their most recent episode, they had me on as a guest, and we were tier listing all of the factions of Age of Sigmar. You'll like this, Adam. For easiest to paint for beginners, basically. Like, what is the most, sort of like you're just starting, this is your first AOS army, from like great, awesome, hot pick to like no, never, you're crazy, right? Don't do it.
I like a tier list on a live show.
Yes.
Yes.
Well, this was edited, to be fair, but nonetheless.
Well,
sure.
Still, but
we did it live, and then they have a very excellent editor who managed to cut it together. Nice. Their editor is really top notch. I just want to say shout out to Barilio, who did a wonderful job on the edit. At any rate, I thought you'd enjoy the topic, right? Because I know you're always thinking about. There's a lot of me discussing the overwrought models that GW is often putting out a lot these days in some armies, right? Also making fun of fish elves, which I know you're not a fan of. So there you go.
I'm not a big fan of the wet elves. No.
So check him out, and we're gonna have the Poor Hammer guys come over here on the show at some point. So
nice.
Absolutely. As we go here into hobby time and everybody's joining in, don't forget to hit like, hit subscribe, share this around. If you got friends who are interested in Snarl or finding a fun new skirmish game, you can do all that. Don't forget you can pick up the game, find everything about it, including a little sample playthrough of it and explainer and all of that down at snarlingbadger.com. Link down in the description. Go check it out. Full 36-page PDF with the new game, expansions for Rain and Hell, Majestic 13, and Death Wizards, all only $8. $8, I can't believe it. And don't forget Super Chat's available too. So if you want to throw any money at us right now, we are still collecting for the Get Tom a New Microphone Fund. Theoretically, he'll be joining us at some point tonight. So he stops. Tom's doing this thing. He uses like some onboard mic, Adam, on his Mac, and he can't stop brushing his hand. He has a mic. Whatever. I'm not gonna.
I thought it was it's not the headphones. Nope. Oh, he's using the mic on the laptop or whatever.
Yes. Yeah. And he keeps taking his hand and going.
Yeah,
I cannot make a noise as loud as he makes it, obviously, right? Because he's like hitting the mic, and it drives me crazy. So this is going to get him a new professional mic. Anyways,
not a bad idea.
So appreciate it, everybody. Thank you all for all that stuff. Okay, let's talk about a little hobby time, and then we'll get into the AMA. Adam, what have you been working on? What have you been painting?
So on Twitch, on Monday nights and Friday mornings, I've been working on the Sons of Bahamut, Spearhead.
Just give me the mulk. Yes.
Right. And so it's been interesting. I am tired of them. They are they're you're like, oh, it's three models. You got to paint 3 models. That shouldn't be hard. Yeah, but they're real big though. And so and their pants are patchwork, and I didn't just paint them one color. I gotta, I'm like, cause I'm looking at them like, these guys can't just work off the rack. They can't just go into like Target or Nordstrom or any place like that and just get pants. They're not even really wearing pants. They're technically wearing chaps, which I don't really want to get into, but it is true. Anyway, so long story short is
and chaps. Yes, that is correct.
Yeah. Underwear. Yeah. Anyway, nonetheless, I've been working on those guys and they're fine. I've also recently been working on 5 robot legions, which are from one-page rules. They're basically kind of their versions of Necrons. They don't look undead, really, like Necrons do, but they are definitely spindly, kind of robot-y guys with kind of long, extended, pointy heads, which I kind of like. And they have cool capes. And so I have been painting them. I messed around with them a little bit yesterday. I was going to work on them today, but then time got away from me. Um, and then the other thing that I did do today while I couldn't leave. I couldn't go down in the basement really because I was waiting for a package to come, and FedEx will do that thing where they drive by and they go, hello, and then drive away. So you have to be like
Sure.
ready to go. And so I didn't want to go down to the basement and start painting and then have them show up. So while I was up here, I was working on, I've been getting into some 3D modeling. I was doing some of it at VinciCon. I designed a couple different little pieces of terrain stuff. And I did a video recently where I had this kind of like, it's like the plastic elbow for your downspout, and then I turned it into a cool sci-fi vent and all that kind of stuff. And I 3D printed some parts for it to, all that kind of stuff. Well, I'm doing it again, but now this is the other one that I bought, which is considerably smaller than the other one. The other one was way bigger. And so it's got this part here, which is all slanty. Like if I'm going to put it down here, it's going to have this lifted part here because it's not flat. So
Right.
it can snap in, I suppose. So I printed this thing, which you can barely see, but I designed it first in this software that I've been using lately, which is not the software I used at VinciCon. It's called Plasticity. And so I did a bunch of measuring. I have my calipers and I was measuring and all this kind of stuff. And then I designed it. And first try, it fits. So that's going to get glued on there before it's time to like do the stuff. But now I got to design a new, like a cap for the front of it so that people don't go down inside the thing. And then I'm going to design a base for it as well. It won't be as big as the other one. The base will be considerably smaller as well. But so then this piece on my printer took, I don't know, 35 minutes to print. It wasn't much. So I got to stop waving my hands because the computer is having a hard time. Yeah, it's a lot of extreme close-ups, except not. But yeah, so that's pretty much it. I've been working on giants, working on robot overlords, robot legions. I keep calling them overlords, and then doing some design modeling and 3D printing.
Nice. A couple people asked you, how do you feel about plasticity compared to Blender or TinkerCAD?
Um, TinkerCAD is very simple and quite easy to use. Plasticity is considerably better, in my opinion. Well, it gives me a lot of options that you just don't have available with TinkerCAD. The ability to chamfer and fillet, which is basically chamfer is turning something into like a bevel, like a flat bevel, and fillet is to make something rounded. You don't really have the ability to do that very easily at all in TinkerCAD. So you kind of have to fudge it, and it doesn't always, and it takes a long time sometimes. And this way, it's just very much just like, see these 4 edges, make them rounded, boom, done. It's really quick. Blender, I have not messed with it in a while. During the pandemic, the earlier days of the pandemic, I'm like, well, I'm going to be home a lot. I'm going to teach myself to do some modeling. And I downloaded Blender, which is free. And I uninstalled it. And then I uninstalled it probably about an hour later. It is at the time, and I'm not saying it's bad software. People use it all the time, but it is the most unintuitive software that I have ever used. And I have been a graphics design software guy for a quarter of a century. And just nothing made any sense. Everything was squirrely. And I've even done other 3D software before, and I was just like, oh, none of this is what I think. And so, yeah, I haven't really messed with Blender. I like Plasticity. Now, Blender's free. Plasticity costs about $150, but it's real nice. So that's why I have picked that up and worked with it.
Stephen Powell says Blender doesn't have a learning curve, it has a learning wall. There you go.
More like a cliff, and there's a bunch of what do you call those? Like crosses that you nail people to on the top, and there's vultures. It's bad.
That's the quote on the wall in Scrooged, because his
Mm-hmm.
name is Frank Cross.
Mm-hmm.
And on the wall in his workout room, it says "Cross, a thing they nail you to."
Sure. Yeah.
So there you go.
Mm-hmm.
Anyways, Robo Warrior says, I'm very slowly teaching myself Blender now. It's rough. I'm getting there, but I've only used bare minimal tutorials, and it's an experience. Well, there you go.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay. My hobby time has been spent. I was getting all my pieces that I'm taking to Monty ready. So that was just like a lot of like little touch ups and stuff like that and going over them. overall, I'm not taking that much stuff because obviously
Hmm.
it's a international flight, so it had to. I got a new little small case. It's only like that big, so I'm taking just like 4 little pieces, which should be fine. I think they're all okay. And the yes, join us every week, Zach K, for hashtag Scrooged Facts. Absolutely. Um, so that's going to be part of the show every week leading up to Christmas. As we're getting into the season here, and Scrooge is my all time favorite Christmas movie. Anyways, the so uh, so there's a lot of that, and then just like I had to hurry up and obviously go into to get a video recorded this week before I go and all of that. I'm going to try to take my camera. That'll be really annoying, but I'm going to try to take my camera with me too. Uh, to Monty so I can record some stuff. So there you go. Okay.
I mean, you could use your phone.
I could just use my phone. Yes,
Just
that
saying,
is true.
it's 4K and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, you're not wrong.
Yeah.
I could just use my phone.
Like if it comes down to like I either need to bring, more clothes or underwear, or I need to bring my camera, I
And
would,
it's just more like having another thing that like
yeah.
it's electronics going through an airport. You
Oh yeah.
can take it out and all of that kind of thing. It just gets annoying. You're not wrong. Maybe I'll just shoot everything on my phone. That's probably fine. I'll think about it. All right. Anyways,
Mm-hmm.
so yeah, but I can't wait to get back next week. That'll be then I'm like basically done traveling. I think for most of the year, I might go visit Sam actually in December and hang out and paint for a weekend. But that would be just traveling to go hang out with somebody and paint for a weekend,
Right, yeah.
which is what I want to do. I feel like I've not gotten as much hobby time as I want in recently, and so now it'll be time to sit down and focus up and get painting. So there you go. Okay. All right. At any rate, with that out of the way, let's get into the actual Snarl discussion. It's 9:30. Will Tom ever join us? Who knows?
Who's to
Who
say?
knows? He may be here. He may not. We'll see what happens. But let's get into it. Let's talk Snarl and AMA. That's what it is. Ask us questions. So first of all, you mentioned it, Adam. Everybody witnessed this awesome thumbnail of this incredible thing here. Now, first, I'm going to show everybody what it's a reference to. I'm going to flip over here. We're going to go to this new picture. There you go. That's the actual picture of Uncle Adam and I at one of my favorite places in the world, where we were at and had a picture taken. And so we said, let's use that for the new picture in the zine.
A Gen Con this year.
Yes, indeed. And then that picture turned into this. So, all right, Adam, share how this came about.
So as it basically, I was watching Falling Freely. She's here in the chat, Stephanie Krieger.
Yes.
We were I was watching her on Twitch, I think. Like I don't know if I don't know if we, because I think we had met at maybe at Adepticon very quickly or something like that or whatever. But I was watching her on Twitch and she was drawing I think 2 kobolds by a fire, and there was a goblin that was sneaking up on them. And as soon as I saw that, I was just like, oh, that's what we need for the goblin game, which we didn't have a name for it particularly at that point.
Yeah, in testing,
So
this was just called Goblin Game.
yeah. And so then I think she came to TMX, and like I said, she's here in the chat. She can back me up or let me know. But she came to TMX, and then we had a bit more of a conversation about it. And yeah, she just did amazing work. I was like, we need a cover, and we need like 3 internal pieces, and it's like the stuff works so well, and the cover itself, like it was not a plan to have that one goblin yelling, the great goblin Argle Bargle, like in the little word balloon. But I was like, where am I going to put the title? I'm like, well, I should put it in something. I can't, it was like this. And then I was just like, it just came to me. I think I was in the shower or something. I'm just like, there's that one goblin that's like yelling, and I wonder if I can make a word balloon and make it fit there, and it fit perfectly. So yeah, no, the artwork is just great. It fits exactly what we're looking for, and she did pretty much awesome work, and we were super happy to work with her. As I was going through and scanning it, because she mailed me the stuff. It was all done traditionally, and as I was going through and scanning it and then going through and just cleaning up, like, like little paper artifacts and stuff like that that we didn't want necessarily, like paper texture and things like that. Which, because this book, because of the way it is designed and that it's designed to be printed, by you folks and whatnot, um, there's no like background texture like our regular books do. We usually have some sort of
Right.
background printed page texture. And so, like with Death Wizards, I was able to figure out a way to take the art both from Sam and from Martin. Martin did all the stuff that looked more painterly. Sam did all the stuff that was more pen and ink, and I was able to figure out a way in Photoshop to make it so that I could put those on the page and they would all blend in, except the parts that I didn't want to blend in. And then that way the paper texture wouldn't come through. And it was a bit of work. But with this one, I just didn't want maybe extra little, fuzzies and bits and stuff like that get picked up by the scanner. I didn't want them to show up in the background. So I was going through and kind of cleaning up things a little bit here and there, and just seeing the artwork very close, like zoomed in, and seeing like the extra care in like the little white lines that go around some of the different parts of the goblins to kind of add to the sort of the pop and to differentiate each goblin from each other and all that kind of stuff. It was all just it was very cool. So yeah, she knocked it out of the park and did great work.
Yep, Stephanie is our primary artist for this, and I guess the actual original, this particular drawing that was a thumbnail, came about from what, like a challenge on Twitch or something, right? I believe that's what happened.
Yeah, it was after the book came out. She was just drawing goblins, and people were giving her ideas. And someone said, "Hey, you should draw, Vince and Adam." And then so she did it from the picture of us at the bar in Indianapolis.
I will put Stephanie's Twitch down in the comments below as well, so people can go in the description, as to say, so people can go find her and follow her on Twitch. I agree with Jim Crimmins, who said the art for Argle Bargle is perfect. I agree. Stephanie's art was so exactly what was in my head, what I wanted for this. So again, let's just lay this out. So Snarl 2024, what's in here? The standalone game this year, which there might not always be a standalone game. There might be years that it's just like expansions. There might be years where it's mostly a standalone game. Who knows? It can vary. We're not holding ourselves to a particular formula. But this year it's the Great Goblin Argle Bargle. And I love Argle Bargle ever since Glenn on the first time I ever heard anybody use that was Glenn on Superstore. No Argle Bargle, which is what he says in there, and it made me laugh a lot. And we were trying to find an appropriate word, since like alliteration and funny words and stuff like that were also all part of this. And so the Great Goblin Argle Bargle, it is a game of chaotic skirmishing goblin fun. Your goblins are around, sing songs, dance dances, try to find other goblins, try not to lose too many goblins, and ultimately become the greatest goblin. So at any rate, that's kind of what's going on with that game. We'll talk more about it in a minute. Then there's also an expansion for Death Wizards with some new necromantic minions. There is new equipment for Majestic 13, and there is a full new solo or co-op campaign for Reign in Hell. 3 more adventures that are sequenced, tied together, that tell a story that continues on the story of the Oculus Spear and the greater Reign in Hell story in general. Okay, so, but with everything we do, it's really important to us that the art matches the sort of feeling, the theme, the vibe of it. Like I'm really picky, not about how not about the art in any specific way. Like I very rarely, when we get our artists, Adam, and we get art proofs back and stuff, do I ever say, "Oh no, I don't want to." Not this, not that, something like that, right? But like, it's the vibe has to be right to me, right? Like, it's got to have the right feeling.
And I think that a big part of it is that what you need to do is you need to find an artist who is already doing the thing that you want them to do.
Yeah.
You can find an artist who you're like, wow, this artist is amazing. They draw the most amazing fantasy stuff, and they've just like the dwarves and the elves and the dragons, and oh, that's awesome. And then you go, I want to hire you to do a bunch of I don't know,
like
sci-fi
32nd century mech suits, and it's like,
right,
what?
exactly,
No.
yeah. Like that's not what to do. What you do, like when with it was because Stephanie was drawing kobolds and goblins and stuff, and I was like, yep, that's exactly what we're looking
Right.
for. With Will, Kirkby for Space Station Zero,
Yep.
like seeing the stuff that he had drawn for his own what do you call them? Graphic novel. He's got a graphic novel out called Grenade, which is kind of hard to find, but it's awesome. As soon as I started seeing that stuff and some of the other things he was doing, I was just like, oh yeah, this is the guy. This is the person that we need for this game. And then Martin and Sam both
Death
for
Wizards.
Death Wizards. Yeah, it was just like as soon as I remember seeing Martin's work on some article, and he drew something that was kind of spooky, and I was like, oh yeah, this is the guy we need to talk to when we do a Necromancer game, and that was that was what we did.
Yeah. And the art of this, like Stephanie's art really does capture the vibe perfectly because um yeah, exactly, Sleepy Dog, I agree. Hire good people and let them do their thing. Yep, absolutely.
Yep.
And so like it does capture the vibe of this because when I wrote the Great Goblin Argle Bargle, and I think Adam, this was your idea originally, right? Didn't you just
But
say like the original concept for this when we were going through some back in the day? I know it's been a while now. Was it
so I
your
have a
idea was
sheet.
just you came to me and said a game with goblins. I think that was your pitch, right?
So yeah, so I've got a file on my phone, and I just keep different game ideas and stuff
Mm-hmm.
like that in there. And so we were considering, all right, well, we got to come up with something for Snarl. And so I was like, okay,
This
and
is
I
like
just
obviously a year and a half ago or whatever, right?
yeah, and so I dumped a whole bunch of information into, I think, on Discord, and I was like, well,
Yeah.
here's the 6 things, and I copied and pasted, and one of them was literally just like a goblin game, maybe called Goblin Mode question mark, and that was it.
Yep.
And so I
That was
give
what it
you
was.
all this stuff, and then you're like, okay, well, I'm going to take a look at this stuff, and I'm like, okay, that's cool. And then I think that week you and your wife went on a vacation thing where
Yeah.
you were gone, or it was maybe like for the weekend, and then we got together the weekend after that or whatever online, and you were like, okay, I did a bunch of writing while I was on vacation, and so here's the goblin game. And I was like, because it was seriously, it was like 7 words was the
Yep.
entire idea. And then
Uh-huh.
you were
Yep.
like, and then you went with it, and I was like, oh, okay, that's the one that you picked. Okay, that's cool.
Yeah, it just came
So yeah.
together. Like I was thinking about it and often that's what it is. Like you'll have these prompts and like you'll be like, well, here's my idea. And I'm like, nah. And then you'll give me another one. I'll be like, nah, nothing there. And then you'll
Mhm.
just say something and be like, yep, okay, got it. And just like, it just spins out in my head. And I'm like, okay, I can see that. And what occurred to me here was I wanted to do something fun and funny with goblins. Very RNG or very like yeah, like RNG, like random number generation, lots of
Mhm.
dice
Mhm.
rolling, lots of whimsy, lots of fun. All right, I in my head what I was picturing was these goblins like just dancing around in the woods, like climbing up trees and looking under rocks and turning over bushes and just like shaking out other goblins from everywhere as they kept like popping out like a Muppet episode, really.
Oh
Like
yeah, for
that's
sure.
like this is definitely a Jim Henson style production, right? The
Mhm.
way
Mhm.
it's sort of in my head, and
Absolutely.
I wanted people to just like I wanted it to be just like a fun thing of like nothing. Too many games we play are like way too serious. There's nothing wrong with serious games. Like don't get me wrong,
Sure,
we've
sure.
written plenty of them, right? Um, but like I do love a bit of whimsy now and then and just like having some silly fun.
Mhm.
And Snarl is really a chance for us where we can do that. Like I'm quite sure that when we like at some point we're going to do a cozy game. I promise that. I don't know when, I don't know what it'll be. What I mean by
No
cozy
idea what
game,
that even means.
yeah, sure. So a cozy game means no combat.
Hmm.
It's not a fighting game. So we'll do a miniature game at some point that has no combat, right? Um, yeah, there you go. Silly with a note of sinister. Yes, absolutely.
Sure. Yep.
And
Yep.
that'll like that first cozy game will probably show up in Snarl, right? Like that's rather than be a full
I
size
think
book first.
Snarl is kind of the place where we can take more chances to some degree, but it's
Yeah.
also a place where we can make games like both of these games now, Snarl and or sorry, Great Goblin Argle Bargle and then the previous game Tanks for the Apocalypse have both been games that have got a bit of a party vibe to it. Now
Yeah.
Tanks was 2 to 10 players, which is seriously a party. Whereas this is 2 to 4, but still it's not the super serious, I'm trying to win so that our way of life is continue. It's it's goblins fighting other goblins and screwing around and sometimes wandering off, and that's kind of the fun part of it. I think it's not, again, a game also that you're going to like, even, I don't want to say any of our games are like ecosystem games where you're like, oh, I'm not a war gamer, I'm a Warhammer player or whatever. Like, that's an ecosystem style game. Our games, even, games like Rain and Hell and games like Space Station Zero and etc., they still have, like, campaign, and they're designed to be, well, you're going to play this for a while and then you'll probably go play something else, or maybe you'll play one of our other games, or you'll, come back to this later or whatever. But even this game, both this one and Tanks, both have a little bit of campaign play, just a little tweak of it
Oh
if
yeah,
you want to
absolutely.
go down
Like
that road. Yeah.
there's a campaign mode to this, so just kind of let's talk a little. So first of all, if anybody's got any questions about this new issue of Snarl or any of our games, drop them in the chat. We'll be
For
watching.
sure.
I'm watching the comments right now. Happy to answer any questions. Robo Warrior said it kind of has an old school Munchkin RPG feel in terms of art. Absolutely. Zach K says it's similar in vibes to the seminal 1981 funk album, The Rainbow Goblins. Well, I know what I'm listening to as soon as this show is over. I'll say that much. Rob Younce, what is coming next? He loves Death Wizards and Snarl. Well, we never talk about it too far in advance, but we'll have some little conversations at some point later on. So stay tuned. And yes, Statler and Waldorf, absolutely my favorite Muppets. They are truly my spirit animals. Like, what Muppet do you identify with, Adam? Like, if you what Muppet is you?
That's a very good question. That one I don't really know the answer to, I don't think. Um, Maybe Grover. Does he count? I mean, he was really more on the Sesame Street.
That's okay. You
But
can be a Sesame
yeah,
Street Muppet.
yeah,
That's
I think
okay.
that's maybe, yeah.
It's fine. I like in my head I want to be Kermit, but really I'm like Statler or Waldorf. Like, I'm a balcony Muppet. That's actually my lot in life.
Maybe
I sit here and make fun of things. That's
well,
absolutely correct.
maybe Scooter. I don't
Oh,
know.
you're the put upon PA.
A little bit, maybe. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, like I think I think I want to be Kermit, but like
Oh,
I
a
just,
lot of people want to be Kermit,
of
but
course,
yeah,
yeah, exactly. Like,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Kermit is goal, right?
Sure, sure.
But I run this production, but I can't herd cats the way Kermit can, keeping
Right.
that show running. Sleepy Dog, should we expect a gameplay demo video coming soon? Sleepy Dog, it's out now. You can see it. If you go look down in the description, there's a link to snarlingbadger.com. And
slash snarl if you want to go directly there.
yeah, that's right. And I just linked to the main site.
Yeah.
But at any rate, Uncle Adam, yeah, definitely Rolf. No, you're a Rolf. That is
I can't
correct.
play the piano, not at all.
You don't need to play the piano. That's not the relevant part. It's an attitude. It's the vibe. And I agree, you're definitely a Rolf. Yes. You're always very cool. Rolf's defining trait is he was always like super chill. He's like the chillest.
Relatively chill. That's true. That's true.
Other Dave says he's Captain Hogthrob. Yes, nice. That's a good one. That's a good one. Okay. So at any rate, will there be Argle Bargle at Adepticon? I don't know. If somebody we will probably run it, I imagine. But I don't know.
I mean, because it's a smaller number of people, I don't, because I was thinking about this just recently. I'm like, should we just run Tanks again? Because we have all the terrain and
Sure.
all that kind of stuff. And we can run 3 boards and then run 30 people. With this, if we ran 3 boards, we could run 12 people. And I don't know. And then we'd need all new terrain and probably also the bats as well. So
I mean, we've got terrain. I'm not too worried about that. It's just any fancy terrain at work. So you said
yeah,
plus little terrain is better for this. So you can just bring
sure. We'll have to talk about it. We haven't decided yet. And to be fair, I don't even know when that opens up, but I got to assume it's soon.
Yeah, I would think
We're
so.
probably late for the actual entry, but
Yeah,
like
we'll
they
see.
never emailed us and said, "Hey, you guys ran something last year. Do you want to run something again?" So I don't know. I should probably reach out to Matthias.
Yep. We'll look into it. That's the answer. We'll see. But anyways, there is a gameplay video. You can check it out on snarlingbadger.com. So there you go. Okay. Stephen Powell says in Space Station Zero, just to verify, when it says one character may attempt for looting, that's one single character, not one from each warband. Correct? Correct. That's right. One character. So Ninjon or Miniac as Beaker. I mean, Miniac is definitely Beaker.
Oh yeah,
It's
yeah.
definitely him. Yeah. 100%. I don't know. John? I don't know. I don't know which one John is.
I
I
don't
gotta
know
think
either.
about that. We'll think about it. All
Hmm.
right. At any rate, so what's, as I said, there's the what's in the book, like I mentioned. So, uh, we'll talk about each of these in a little more detail. Let's begin, of course, with the Great Goblin Argle Bargle. So, basic premise of the game. Hey, thank you, Zach. I appreciate it. Um, he said I'll be running my event at Acon and we'll have literally 15 tables of narrative AOS with me for my event, so he'd be happy to help out. Very cool. Is John Scooter? Maybe, maybe.
I don't know.
No, Sam is absolutely Dr. Teeth. There is no question Sam is Dr. Teeth, the leader of the Electric Mayhem. Like
Doesn't look like it.
100%. No, again, it's the vibe. He doesn't.
I
It's not.
know. Yeah.
But like Dr. Teeth is a wild man, but yet he's actually super cool. Like that's
Mm-hmm.
Sam. Sam is always like the coolest dude who's just like into music, but just like busts out with some deep wisdom every so often. Like, and Dr. Teeth will do that. Like he just randomly will say, there's been like if you watch that newer show with him, which is all about the band, all about the Electric Mayhem or whatever. They like Dr. Teeth will just like say wise things randomly every so often. He
Mm-hmm.
actually has a pretty good concept of what's going on, but he's just rolling with this wild group of people. And that's Sam. Anyways, Great Goblin Argle Bargle. So the basic premise here is mechanically, you start with a Great Goblin, and 12 other goblins. That's how you start. Okay. And so you need two players. So both players have a Great Goblin and 12 goblins. You set up on the board. There's a whole little thing to how you set up a scenario and different little scenarios you can run. And then you're off to the races playing the Great Goblin Argle Bargle. That is like a thing that's happening in World. The goblins go around. And I wanted to make this a game about doing more than just fighting. So you actually are spending a lot of your time exploring terrain, doing other things. Each round, your goblins can move, they can fight if they're in range of other goblins, and they can perform a shenanigan. And so every round, there's a goblin shenanigan. And each goblin tribe gets their own unique special skill and follows a particular goblin god, which gives them a special ability. And the basic sort of idea is you're trying to find more goblins to build up your tribe. So anytime you come into contact with terrain or claim an objective, you get to make a gather goblins roll. Basically, you're looking around that thing for goblins to see if there's any there hiding out. In my mind, goblins are just like they're very good at getting themselves to be very compact and hiding well. So you got to poke around and see if you can find them. So when they explore terrain, when they do things like that, they find goblins, and your tribe slowly gets bigger. But also, goblins just kind of wander off sometimes, or fall in rivers, or punch each other in the face and knock one of them out. Right? Like they squabble. And so you also make a lot of what we call defector rolls, which is when goblins just kind of leave, just disappear, and you lose some goblins. Where'd they go? Who knows? They just hey, weren't they here a minute ago? Yep, but then they're not now. And so you're constantly like gaining and losing goblins. It's this sort of up and down, very dice dependent, random thing. And then, of course, fighting will also cause you to lose goblins. But your goal is to, wipe out the enemy goblins before they wipe you out, and/or have more objectives at the end of the time if you don't wipe them out. So that's kind of the very basic gameplay, right?
Mm-hmm.
So there you go.
And you can use whatever kind of goblins you want. You don't have
right.
to. Like I had a lot of people ask about, like, well, I've got a bunch of goblins with spears, but I've also got some with bows, and that's totally fine. The only real kind of like differentiation that you might want is you probably want your great goblin to be different looking enough that they're easy to spot.
Yep.
In the video stuff and photos and things like that, I've got a goblin with a big banner, and that one is the one that is like that's the Great Goblin. But the other ones are all, they have all kinds of different weapons, loadouts, and stuff like that. And that does not matter in this game.
That's right.
So you don't have to worry about it.
Nope. They can be whatever. Whatever
Mhm.
you like. And mechanically what happens is all of the, like, your goblins all move as one, effectively. Like, you move them individually, but they all have to stay within range of the Great Goblin. So technically what usually happens is you move the Great Goblin first, and then you move everybody else into a radius around them, because all your goblins have to end within basically like 6 inches of your Great Goblin. They can't ever leave that radius. And when you take damage, you just lose goblins. Like, every damage equals 1 goblin gone. So effectively, they're kind of like one living hive. It's one organism, almost, like, from the way the game treats it, right? Because your goblin tribe can effectively lose 12 goblins before it's over. Okay. But the nature of it is your goblins are the reason we still did that and kept them all separate. You don't just move them as a block or just make one really big goblin or something silly, is because it does give you the ability to kind of spread out. You can have one goblin over here exploring this terrain, one touching this objective, kind of like you can get clever with your movement and actually explore the space. And the goal here was I did want it to be very terrain focused. So, like, in the scenarios, when you're playing the game, if you have objectives that are on particular types of terrain, like there's an objective in the woods or an objective on ruins or something like that, that objective will have a different effect on your tribe when you claim it. Okay? So effectively, because it's a particular thing, it's a particular type of objective, right? If it's an objective that comes out of the woods, it's something you would find in woods. If it's an objective in a river or in ruins or whatever, right? Like, even though the objective is sort of an amorphous game term, I wanted to seed it in the real world and create some verisimilitude of what's happening there, right? So, like, each game will play very differently, because there's a whole suite of different, and I'll zoom down here real quick to them. Some great art pieces. We'll take a look at those in a moment. First of all, yeah, here's the terrain, and then in here it says where the objectives are. So, like, in caves, objectives on caves are often delicious mushrooms, tasty spiders, or other bugs that can be gobbled up. If an objective is on a piece of caves terrain and is claimed by your tribe at any point, you gain 1 additional reward dice. So you get a thing at the end of the game because it's full of delicious, tasty treats. Okay, and so on and so forth. Whereas here, you have your scenarios. And so, like, for example, you've got a toothy prize where once all terrain and objectives have been placed, randomly determine one objective. This is the toothy prize, a pet of some substance and size that will greatly help the tribe. As long as the tribe controls the toothy prize objective, they may reroll the dice when using the release pets shenanigan and deal 1 additional damage whenever they deal damage with that shenanigan. But there's a twist. The twist is the toothy prize is not easy to control. Each time your tribe activates and makes a defector roll, you must roll twice and select the highest result as long as you control the toothy prize objective. Because having the big toothy prize scares people away. Okay? Scares the other goblins. And so on and so forth. So the combination of, like, where the objectives are, because you and your opponent are placing the objectives each time, and the terrain you choose to put them on will have different effects, will make the game play differently. When you combine that within the scenario that you play, where then it's further altering what the objectives are doing and how they're playing and what claiming them gives you and so on and so forth, will then, like, that makes each game feel very different, which I was pretty excited about. And there's like 12 different scenarios in here, or 10 different scenarios in here. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. Noops. Nope, it's not just stand on circles. Robert, I will not be at LVO. Adam, are you going to be at LVO?
Yeah, I actually just booked my flight like yesterday.
Very nice. Sam Gardner says, luckily I managed to snag 100 goblins from Stormbringer a few weeks ago. Now I just need to worry about terrain. Very nice. And then, yeah, sorry, there was an earlier question about rolling a D3. Yeah, so just, like, a couple different ways to do it. But, like, the way I've always done it is you roll the D6 and 1 or 2 is 1, 2, 3 is... Or sorry, 1 or 2 is 1, 3, 4 is 2, 5, 6 is 3. So that's fine. You can also just think of, like, you know, 1, 2, 3, or then 4, 5, 6 is just 1, 2, 3 again. That's another way to do it, but like it doesn't really matter as long as it's clear. But traditionally, it's always been 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. But at any rate, okay. There you go. How many goblins will I need? So you start with 13, one being a special one that needs to look different, your Great Goblin. You will find goblins over the course of the game. So I would say realistically you need about 20, 21 goblins total. Realistically, it's pretty rare that you get any higher than that for various and sundry game reasons. It becomes very hard to gather any more goblins when you get like a really big tribe. There's a diminishing marginal utility to it. The game responds. If you get too many goblins, it becomes harder to get more goblins. So like generally 20 or 21 goblins is pretty much your sort of soft cap. Can you use Gloomspite Gits? Heck yeah. You can use any goblins you want.
Yeah.
Anything can be a goblin if you want.
Anything can be a goblin if you believe in yourself.
Yeah, like if you've got some Gloomspite Gits, you throw some squigs in there too, or whatever, like whatever you like, whatever goblins from anything. If there's so many different cool goblins out there. So there you go. Exactly. The trouble with goblins is that once you get a few, before you know it, you have hundreds. It's just how they work. That is very true with the minis, yes, and with goblins in general. Yep. Okay. Has anyone put together a list of the terrain things needed? Well, I can take you through it real quick. So here you go. In general, as always, our terrain is guidance, not dictum. Okay. So our terrain that we have are big rocks, and caves, woods, houses like farmhouses or fields, ruins, rivers, swamps. That's the list of options in our terrain thing. Now, those could be a lot of different things. If you have a couple trees of any kind, those could be, and pools. Sorry, did I say pools? I don't know if I said pools, but pools also. Standing water. So, like, most of those are meant to be pretty flexible. Like, if you had some, like, craggy rock pieces, those could be big rocks. Those could be caves, right? Whatever you want. Okay, so there you go. It's just kind of like go nuts. It doesn't have to be exact. You can use whatever terrain you want. Okay, if all you've got are like, you were big into Star Wars and you've got like the little Tatooine huts or whatever.
Sure. Yeah.
You know, cool. Those are your farmhouses or whatnot. Yeah, great. Like, cool.
Goblins are on all kinds of different planets. So really, it could be, who's to say? It doesn't have to be, Earth.
Absolutely. Yeah. Can you use humans in business suits as goblins in humans in business suits? Yes, absolutely. Correct. The goblins are wearing human suits who are wearing business suits. Yes. 100%.
Three goblins in a trench coat. Could do that too.
Yep. Exactly. Stephen Powell said, I plan to play against people running Skaven. 100%. Like, just using Skaven would be a perfectly acceptable replacement for this. Yes, I love that. Very similar in vibe, right? Okay. So, like I said, generating the actual scenarios is pretty easy. But the reality is you do get a lot of variance in the gameplay experience from it. Now, as I mentioned at the beginning, you also customize your tribe. So, like, every tribe starts out the same size. I just love this goblin piece right here. Let's all take a look at Stephanie's awesome art here on the shenanigans page. So, great stuff. Here we go. Yeah. All right. So, everybody has a tribe, but then as well, you get to choose a skill and a goblin god. And so your tribe can be like speedy, strong, shooty, stabby, spellsy, and so on. You get to choose a god: Gobel, Giblex, Greebag, Gadababa, or Gobblerex, and so on and so forth. And each of those gives your tribe some kind of special abilities, right? But pretty straightforward other than that. So you can get into it real easy. It does not take long to make up your tribe. There is a campaign mode to it, so you can play, and it actually has it. Unlike most of the campaign modes we've done, it actually does have a defined endpoint. This is a question we've frequently gotten, right, Adam? Of like a defined endpoint. So in this one, if you manage to have 20 goblins or more at the end of 3 games in a row, you have become the greatest goblin. And that's it. Campaign over. Right? Like, now that's difficult to do. But if you do it, congratulations, you're the greatest goblin. Start a new campaign, make a new tribe. So there you go. Okay. Let's see. Jawas are absolutely goblins. Many things are goblins when you think about it. Yeah,
It's true.
absolutely. Utini. Okay. All right, good. Adam, what did I miss here? What haven't I talked about with this? I've been talking a while.
Um, I think that I mean, you have a little bit of this as far as customization. There's not a ton of customization because it's a relatively kind of a micro game, but you do have a lot of different variation in between, the gods that you pick or the god that you pick, and the same with the skills. When you want to start to customize more is if you are playing in a post game process type of game. You're playing in a campaign, then you've got the ability to kind of get those extra little uh, things that allow you to then give yourself even more kinds of like rewards almost, which then allow you to play even a bit differently as well. So the game isn't, you don't have to worry as much about the individual models like you do in a lot of
Right.
skirmish games when they go into the post-process mode, where you're like, oh gosh, this guy's, hurt for the next two, games, or that's not, they're goblins. They get hurt thinking hard. So it's going to be a situation where you kind of can get a hang of your force, and it's not going to change too greatly other than in size.
That's right. There is a little bit of fun things in the post game process. Let's see here. Let me get down to. Oops, sorry, did I go past it? Yeah, there we go. There we go. Just real quick here. Um, there's various different things that you can find here in this. Like at the end, you can find little rewards. Some of them are just, what single use things. But they're all things that like goblins would value for the most part, like toothy pets and smelly fungus and pointier sticks and stuff like that.
Hmm.
But then also my favorite is if you roll boxcars in the post game process, you do find the Sword of Eternal Power, which I assume then your Great Goblin wields, and it gives you a bonus to offense because you found like a real magic item. Everything else is just like tasty berries or stuff like that. But
Hmm.
then they just randomly found a real magic item. Right? Like they were wandering around and some adventurer somewhere died and left a magic sword on the ground, and they're like, oh, it's like their most dangerous thing they've ever found.
Hmm.
So there you go. That's wonderful, Whiskey Writer, and that's sort of exactly what I'm talking about, right? Like I want people to have, I want us to have lots of different types of games where there's like people have different and varying tastes, and I want to make sure that we have offerings that can be an inroad for people into the hobby, or to express that different side of it. I know I like playing different types of games, so
And
there
I,
you go.
I think that a game like this is a very good, like Tanks of the Apocalypse obviously also worked well with kids, because Tom was playtesting it with kids, his kids, and they're having a sleepover and stuff like that. And so, but again, it's like a war thing, and it's maybe not necessarily for everybody, even though it is kind of a party game because you can play with so many people, and it's done well and people have enjoyed it. We had, again, 30 people show up to our 30-person game at Adepticon. But I think the thing with the goblins is even a little bit more accessible to a wider audience, because they're going to look at it and go, okay, well, I know what goblins are. That's cool, and I get a bunch of them, and they're doing fun stuff, but you're not having to worry about, well, I've got 6 different squads I've got to keep track of. You've basically got one big kind of blob that you're moving around, and that's kind of and that's what you have to keep track of. And sometimes in these types of games, having fewer things to keep track of is also much more accessible and fun.
Yeah, exactly. So if you like whimsy, a little bit of fun, if you like a varied experience where you can pop around, like you get benefits for exploration and having a lot of fun, it is worth talking a little bit about the shenanigans because those are a big part of it. Let's go back to our shenanigan area here. So like the kinds of things your goblins can do are, setting traps, releasing pets, start a fire, sing a goblin song, perform a ritual, do a goblin dance, all those kinds of things. Every
But
turn. Oh, go ahead.
everybody has access to that.
Mhm.
right? Like, because that's not like the when you're kind of designing your group, you've got the god and you've got the skill, and then that's kind of what defines your group. But then you can use a different shenanigan every turn.
That's right. Every
Hmm.
turn. Well, let's talk for a moment just about activation because I think that's worth talking about. So, the way you actually activate in the game is the oh, absolutely nuclear tourist. Yeah, I do need to get in touch with Louise around this because I know Louise is like a huge Goblin fan. So, um, the um, the nature of your activation is like this: you get a bag, some kind of bag. I use a Crown Royal bag, of course, because I've played Magic, and so I have a and or have dice. And as we all know, the number one either thing to hold your deck of Magic cards or dice is the Crown Royal bag, the number one nerd dice holding implement since 1990, except no substitutions. And at any rate,
Older than that.
yeah, it's when I started using mine. I have no idea when
Yeah,
it
yeah.
was when people started using Crown Royal bags to carry around dice. But the way it works is for every tribe that's playing, you put 3 dice of their color into the bag. So like you got, let's say, 2 people playing. You're gonna put in 3 blue dice or 3 red dice or whatever, and then randomly you just draw a dice out. And if it's blue, then the blue team gets to activate. If you draw another dice and it's the blue team again, um, then the blue team gets to go again. But that means that chances are the red team will get to activate twice in a row at some point in time, and so on and so forth. And so basically, in every turn, uh, you you get 3 activations. So that once those are all done, turn is over. Proceed to the next turn. Noops said Vince is a dice goblin. Oh, Noops, you have no
Oh, yeah.
idea.
No, yeah.
Adam has been here since I've
Right.
installed my newest thing in the basement, which is I ordered like alchemy glass bottles. This is hard to explain, but I'll just explain real quick. Because I have so many dice sets that I think are pretty and nice, and I wanted to display them, so I ordered alchemy dice bottles of varying sizes. And then I found an old antique wall shelving unit, and I hung it up on the wall on uh, uh, what are like the French clips or whatever they're called, the long backers,
Hmm.
and um, and then I have them all displayed by size of the set in different bottles up there on the wall. In my gaming area. So yeah, like I am, and that is not even close to like all of my dice up on the wall. That's just
It's
like
just
all
the
the
fancy
prettiest
ones.
ones. Yes, that's
Yeah,
just
yeah,
the
yeah.
fancy ones. I have like many other dice areas in the basement. You cannot swing a dead cat down here without hitting a ton of dice. At any rate, um, okay. Uh, so yes, French cleat. Thank you. That's the word I was looking for. I appreciate that. Thank you, Sergeant. Um, okay. So at any rate, let's get back to shenanigans. So that's how you activate. Each turn you activate, you can move, fight, and do a shenanigan. And like a shenanigan could be like start a fire. If you perform this shenanigan, then until your tribe next moves, whenever an enemy tribe makes a ranged attack against your tribe, the damage dealt by that attack is reduced by 1 to a minimum of 0. Also, it just looks pretty cool because it does. Like starting fires looks pretty cool.
Sure.
So that kind of thing. That's shenanigans. As I said, you can dance, you can sing, you can release your pets, you can set traps, all sorts of fun things. So, um, yeah, it's all in all. I am really happy with how it came out. There's just a lot to it for honestly not being that long of a game, and I'm pretty happy with kind of where we ended up being able to uh, being able to create it. All right, what
I
other
f-
questions do people
I
have
f-
about
I
this? Yeah,
feel
go ahead,
you
Adam.
really kind of nailed the sort of goblin vibe. As the person doing the writing, it's you've got a lot of the pointy sticks and the stabby and there's like a lot of terminology in there, which I think
I was
perfectly
able to
lends
very easily
itself.
put my mind into the into that of a goblin. Yes,
Exactly.
all
Yeah.
right.
I think you did great work with that, honestly.
Well, thank you. I think that like it's really fun to write with a strong voice, to write like mechanics with a strong voice. So we've talked before about how when we create our games, like from a mechanical perspective, we're very top down as a sort of company, right?
Hmm.
We start with a set of guiding principles, themes, important words, and then everything is drawn from that, right? Everything is drawn from what those initial like 4 or 5 sentences or ideas or concepts are. And I think in this, I had my guiding principles were like, uh, you know, whimsy, chaos, RNG, terrain matters, exploration. That was the kind of stuff I had written up there,
Hmm.
right? Yeah, exactly. Other Dave says, "Will there be a meta watch or stat show for this Goblin game? What's the best faction?" Yeah,
We could
absolutely.
get
Yes,
maybe
we'll
we
be
can get
tracking
Rob.
all tournament data across the
We
world.
get
Yes,
see if we can get Rob involved.
absolutely.
Yeah, yeah.
Robert T, would it be demoed at LVO by chance? Well, I won't be there. Adam, you're probably working for Army Painter when you're there, I assume,
Yeah,
right?
I'll be in the Army Painter booth a good deal of the time, so that's probably not going to happen at LVO.
Yeah.
Also, me flying there and stuff, then trying to bring terrain and all that kind of jazz. Yeah, that's currently not in the cards. But if somebody else wanted to run a demo out there, of course, it was maybe more local or wasn't working while they were there, I think that'd be fine. That'd be good too. I was going to mention earlier, Vince, I forgot. I had a meeting today with the artist that we've got, one of the artists I want to work on the next game with,
Yes.
and it went well. But he was looking at the website and he saw the sculpts that you've got on the screen currently, the
Yes.
Necromancer sculpts from Knucklebones, and he was pretty excited about those. He thought those were really really cool, which I thought was
Nice.
was great. It was yeah.
Yeah. By the way, we do have sculpts for our 6 main necromancers in Death Wizards, which we'll turn to in just a moment. Matty Knuckles, Knuckle Bones was nice enough to do those. We partnered with them for it, and yeah, you can find everything at My Mini Factory. So pretty cool.
Hmm. Hmm.
Um, how long do you think an average two-player game takes? So once you know your first game will probably take, I don't know, 45 minutes, something like that. Once you know the game, when we were doing testing, I had a couple different people I was testing with, and when we were doing the testing, we were doing 30-minute games, like pretty easily. We
Once
would
you get
just
the hang of
like
it.
set up, play the game, 30 minutes, re-rack, play again. And like it was just we went through like 4 or 5 games pretty fast, back to back to back. It was just fun because we were just trying, we kept trying all the different things and stuff
Hmm.
like that. So yeah, it's pretty darn quick. So there you go. 4-player game, probably a little bit longer than that, but honestly not that much longer. Probably closer 45 minutes, maybe an hour, something like that. So it tends to get pretty chaotic pretty fast with 4 goblin tribes on the board, so things do move along pretty quickly. Um, God Santa, is Death Wizards going to get spells that affect rattlers, or whatever? Currently the thing I am missing the most. Yeah, sure. We just this expansion of Death Wizards that's in here, Fresh Creations, introduces 4 new necromantic minions. The Arisen Wolf, the Dread Warrior, the Flaming Horror, and the Nightwalker. So it's more minion focused because there was a set of minions I really thought was there. I am sure that we will do additional expansions for Death Wizards in the future, and realistically, the necromantic powers is a pretty likely place that I will do expansion content for. It's the most obvious, because necromancers are the innovators, like the whole part of the sub theme of Death Wizards, since they're the protagonists, as it were. They're the innovators of the world. Like they're the ones pushing for change. They are the agitation force that is the force of change in the world, and as such, they're like the ones who usher in change. And the big ways they do that, the big way they innovate, is through their either the things they create, which is what we explored here, bringing new necromantic minions, or through new necromantic powers, like through their research and stuff like that, right? So there you go. So yes, there will definitely, I'm sure at some point there will definitely be further dark methods for your dark ends. Is it weird I want new heroes and scenarios in Death Wizards? No, absolutely not. Again, makes complete sense. I really do think Death Wizards has a lot still that can be explored, because it's fun to play this role. There's a lot of potential sort of missions you could imagine the bad guy doing, right? Like the reverse of every D&D adventure ever is basically
Oh
what
yeah.
you can do, right?
Yeah.
Like if you think of every D&D adventure, it's like, oh, we've got to stop X from happening. Well, the turn it on its head is we need to make X happen,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
Whatever heroes in any D&D adventure ever have been trying to stop is something that the necromancers in this game might be trying to achieve, right? So there you go. You can ask any questions you want, other Dave. It doesn't have to be quick. One more quick Argle Bargle question. Since the Gobos move together as a group, can you use multi-figure bases of goblins? What about mounted goblins? I wouldn't use multi-figure bases because you do want them to be able to move individually, because there is a big advantage. Like that, it does have a point, because you need to be able to sort of arrange your electron cloud of goblins in various and sundry ways to like touch different terrain or objectives or stuff like that. Now, mounted goblins, sure, yeah, absolutely, of course, 100%. Put them on squigs, put them on wolves, like, yeah, of course, like that's fine, like absolutely.
Now they're not going to move any quicker or do anything like that. Like again, they kind of all move as one big mass, and they all are going to have like that's the thing that we kind of pulled away from in this game, rather than being like, well, there's archer squigs and there's combat squigs and there's riding
Right.
squigs and they're or not squigs, sorry, goblins. They're all the same thing, you know what I mean? So it kind of works that way.
Now that being said, okay, like one of the one of the upgrades you can take does make your team faster.
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
So like if you were playing just like all squig mounted goblins and then you just took the speedy upgrade, like sure,
Yeah.
like that
Absolutely.
could work, right? Like you can it's about like the customization options are there. If you want to make your modeling match to it, go nuts,
Mhm.
right? So, yeah, it's pretty straightforward. Um okay, put them on Cygnus says put them on other goblins even. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Just a goblin riding a goblin. One big goblin on one very small but very put out goblin. Yes, 100%. So the Death Wizards expansion this time was pretty simple, but it was something that I wanted to get in here. Being our newest game, it just came out this year. Like, and I know that Adam, you and I had a long talk about this of like, were we going to actually do expansion content for a game that we literally just released? And I pushed for it because I did think this was. I was like, I'll keep it small, and I just think I have. There's so much more I want to write for Death Wizards, right? That I wanted to get it in here. I would imagine that you'll see expansion content for Death Wizards in many issues of Snarl going forward. It's not going to be in every one, of course, because we'll always vary based on what ideas we have.
Hmm.
But you'll see some stuff. Hey, Brian Isaacs, thank you for the super chat. Absolutely appreciate it. He said, I loved your Poor Hammer debut. Oh, it was great to hang out with those guys. Like I said, we're going to get them over here on the show at some point as well. So there you go. Okay. Um, but yeah, Death Wizard's pretty straightforward. Keep those questions coming, people, and keep hitting like, subscribe, and yeah, be cool. Super chat, stuff like that. All right. Majestic 13, gear drop. So, Adam, talk about how this is framed narratively. Like, talk about the world of Majestic 13 for people so they understand why. Because this was a very fun thing to sort of conceive the background of what happened here, right?
Sure. For do you mean just for the way the game works in general, or this stuff?
Like, not this stuff specifically, more
Yeah,
like
yeah.
why does suddenly a bunch of new gear narratively become available to the forces of Majestic 13, right?
Right. So, I mean, the idea behind Majestic 13 is you have these 13 different organizations, and they are all trying to stave off the alien menace that is starting to plague the planet Earth. And frankly, there's a lot of what is known of as retech, which is basically reverse engineering tech. That's what the retech is stuff that they went and they kicked some alien butt, and the aliens dropped some stuff, and then they took it back with them, and then they tried to figure out how to get it to work and or whatever, and pull what they can from it technology wise and things like that. And so there's always going to be, as the world of Majestic 13 kind of trundles on, there's always going to be new technology available, because there's just either this is the first time that this has been dropped intact, so we can try to figure it out, or maybe this is a thing that got dropped, on during a battle in the 70s, and we just haven't been able to get the thing to work until now, or whatever the deal might be. So the concept of Majestic 13, Majestic 13 is probably my favorite of the games that we've made. And interestingly, it's also the one that sells the least, but that's to be expected. But yeah, it is definitely, the vibe of it in my mind, I think, is the thing that if I was going to sit down and write like actual lore or something like that, which is unlikely, but let's say I did, it would be probably either Majestic 13 um, or Death Wizards, because I like Necromancers a lot. I mean, it would make more sense for Vince to do the if there was going to be like lore or a short story or something like that about Space Station Zero, because that was completely like pulled from a night. That was his idea. He was working. You were looking originally at Space Station Zero as being a role playing game.
That's right.
Yeah,
Yeah, how long until I beat up Adam and I like have an almost actual role playing game as our mini game in here?
yeah. Oof.
Who knows? It could happen at some point.
I mean, really, because any game that's got a campaign mode kind of becomes a
Yeah,
role playing game.
we like RPG elements already. Yes.
Yeah, it's not like role playing, but it is definitely like video game role playing, where you're
Yeah,
like,
sure.
okay, well, now I got these experience points and I get to put in into these new skills and I get to do this. And that's, for me, that's about as far as I generally want to go. Like full blown actual role playing. That's not generally for me, but I know that you're a big fan. I mean, that's where I
I am.
started, but it's not what I do these days.
Just finished a campaign actually this last Tuesday. Literally had the last adventure of a year long campaign. Finished at my level 18 character. There you go, all done. So I'm starting a
Nice.
new campaign next week. So yeah, I've been playing RPGs for a while. But at any rate, yes. But the thing I love about it is there's the narrative construct of Majestic 13 is such that there's like all this bureaucracy in the
Hmm.
world, right? And so having new gear just like show up is completely reasonable because the tech could have been around for a long time. It was just the bureaucracy was all tangled up, the weapons, the armor, all that stuff. Just couldn't get to the end users in time, right? Had to go through
Hmm.
you got to triple stamp these forms, then they got to get approved, they got to go through the workflow. Oh wait, hold on, we didn't do supplementary form 103CA dash zeta, which is required whenever you're doing a supplementary request after Labor
Rook,
Day, right? Obviously.
rookie mistake. Rookie mistake.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So yeah, so this is just an opportunity for us to add more gear in, especially in the later phase of the game. Though not all, some of it is still initial phase stuff. Um,
Yeah,
Angs
those
are
those phase one and phase two.
yes, phase one and phase two gear, which just means like how experienced your group is. Like you start the
Yep.
game in phase one, and then as you gain experience and defeat aliens, it becomes phase two. Angzar's art says a little birdie said Vince hates mixing RPGs and minis. Oh no, that's not a little birdie. Vince said that. Vince does not believe that miniatures belong in role playing games, which are meant to be theater of the mind. If you're using minis in an RPG, you're just wrong. See, it's that easy.
So you're a big
It's
fan of D&D Fourth Edition.
yeah. A D&D Fourth Edition is the best. One of the better like skirmish war games ever made. It has nothing to do with D&D, but a really nice skirmish war game.
I've heard
Quite
that
well
from
designed.
I've heard that from a lot of people. They're like, yeah, it's one of the best skirmish war games I've ever played. It's just not a role playing game.
Yeah, absolutely. Stephanie says someone asked me if prints of the goblin art will be available. Maybe something we can consider or a T-shirt. Yeah, Adam, I don't know. Like you're the master of our merch store, so I'm gonna defer that over to you.
I mean, I think T-shirts would probably be. I mean, T-shirts are certainly within the realm of stuff. I before everything for this issue of Snarl and everything got going, I was working on some designs, some T-shirt designs and things like that for Death Wizards. I actually had some uh, failed to some degree. we're taking them to, I don't know, Goodwill or something like that. But there's some failed test prints basically that we with the company that we work with. They do print
Also
on
known as
demand.
one-of-a-kind collector's items.
Yeah. If you can get them at the local Goodwill, they just like they have different types of printing and stuff like that, and so it was like too thick and didn't and the color the black and white didn't look right, so I got to tweak it anyway. But yeah, I could definitely see something like that for potentially some of the art from Argle Bargle. That'd be pretty cool. As far as prints, I think that if I think that because what basically that'd be a thing that I think Stephanie could sell if she was so inclined to do so. I know that Martin, who did the artwork for the painterly stuff for Death Wizards, I think is going to probably be doing some selling of some prints from some of the art from Death
Yeah, of
Wizards.
course.
So yeah, that's kind of the deal that we kind of work out. So yeah, that's something to take a look
Yeah,
at
we
for
only
sure.
use first run, right? So we can do the merchandising, but so can the artists. They can.
Yeah.
We want our artists that we work with to be able to also like profit off of the art that they generate for us, like sell prints
Absolutely.
or do whatever they want with it. Yeah, of course.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, I agree, Angzar. Thank you. Whoever decided to balance the fighter and magic user power development arcs is a heretic. Thank you. Thank you. Everybody's like, oh, but the fighter's this and the yeah. That's the whole point. You walk around as a nerd for a long time getting punched in the face, and you do that because at the end of that road is phenomenal cosmic power. You hope.
When we used to play
Dumb scrap.
what the heck is it? Neverwinter Nights, the video game that
Yeah,
was
sure.
based off a third edition. Like there was one weekend that my wife and I and some other friends, we all got to get over at one friend's house and we were playing that game like multiplayer. And on Friday night, I would be like, guys, because I was the magic user. I'd be like, guys, there's a dog. It's looking at me. It's coming over here. I help. And it because early levels you're just not great as the wizard or whatever and all that kind of stuff. And then by Sunday afternoon or whatever, we would be walking into a new area. And I'm like, all right, you guys just hang back here, and then I would just nuke everything, and then they would go through and pick up all the burnt husks and shake the coins out.
As it should be.
Yeah.
As it should be. Might have to explore that sometime in some writing. Might have to correct some sins of the past. I don't know where I'd do it, but I do like to take my frustrations out through rules writing.
Sure, yeah.
Cygnus says merchandising. Absolutely. Spaceballs, the toilet paper.
Absolutely.
Spaceballs, the bed sheets. Absolutely. Argle Bargle, the flamethrower. Yes. And then finally, Rain in Hell, the broken door. This is probably the largest expansion in here. We do have some. I have a Majestic 13 T-shirt, Calvin Baker. You'd want to ask at I think we have some.
They're not on
available, right?
They're not on the site yet, but they're in progress. Yeah. But they will be launching along with Death Wizard stuff and all. Yeah, I've got it. I keep putting them on the website, and yeah, it's a thing. It's
so
also
what
because
I want to do is just join Blue Sky or hit Adam up on his YouTube channel or whatever. I don't care. Like on some social media. What I'd like y'all to do is just like once a day, somebody just pass the responsibility around. Once a day, tweet at him or Blue Sky at him or whatever you call that, or leave a YouTube comment that says, "When's that merch coming?" Just hit him up.
That is not helpful in any way. That's definitely not helpful at all in any way. I already hear it from time to time for my own merch, which I'm also in progress on.
It's all right. It's all good. Okay. So the answer is yes, it will be coming, Calvin. Yeah, because you made I got that blue shirt that's the test print you did or that a long time ago.
So yeah, that was we were running what the heck? We were running Rain in Hell at Adepticon.
Yeah.
And you and I were both wearing. Why were we running Rain in Hell? Or
we were running Space Station Zero, and we were wearing the Majestic 13 shirts.
We were running Space Station Zero. We weren't able to run it because I didn't bring the right terrain, or there was some sort of problem. But then one of my patrons, Terrence, he came and he had some terrain, and then you were still able to run it. That's right. But the point is that while we were standing there running Space Station Zero, we were wearing T-shirts from Majestic 13 before it was even done, and it was just sort of like one of those Easter egg kind of things. I had the Industrial Arms faction T-shirt on, and you had Section 6. Section 6. Yep.
Absolutely.
But nobody knew what they were yet because the game wasn't out. So
that's right.
Trickery.
Trickery indeed. We are
Hmm.
sneaky. In the picture in the beginning of this, I'm just wearing my Pirate Pride t-shirt, which is also a reference, but not to one of our games. We'll see if anybody knows what that's a reference to. At any rate, okay. So, this is probably the largest expansion in Snarl, which is Reign in Hell: The Broken Door. This is, as I said, a 3-part narrative campaign. It continues on from the events of the Oculus Sphere, and so it is a solo co-op experience.
Hmm.
And it's meant to, like, Reign in Hell has very much, like a lot of our games, like Space Station Zero actually has a fairly self-contained story within it. Like, if you play all the way through, it actually has a beginning, middle, and an end
Yeah.
of what happens. If you play the full campaign of Majestic 13, much the same thing. Like, you eventually do, like, there is an end point because the special missions will pop as you go through the randomized alien missions, and you will encounter Force, the bad guys, and eventually you'll kind of like meet the the ultimate bad guy or whatever. Like,
Hmm.
you will eventually confront the ultimate Force and sort of have the sort of final battle. Um, Death Wizards itself very much has a sort of like open-ended kind of playthrough, but you do like it. The last sort of mission, as it were, is like Dark Apotheosis, where you're becoming a sort of very powerful being. Reign in Hell is very much more open-ended in how we structured it, and so when I first wrote the Oculus Sphere, which I did also write when I was away with my wife for the weekend. Those are my writing weekends. That's what they become. Um, uh, the I very much wrote a sort of open-ended story, and you and I talked about what we saw as the sort of grand narrative of the story, like what was actually happening in the background.
Hmm.
And so, like, Adam and I have narrative lore of like what's actually going on in the world and where the world is going and stuff like that. And these, I like being able to then explore that through these ongoing story things. This is one of our only games where we're really actively sort of exploring an ongoing story. So we'll see if people like that or not. But the first one is the Oculus Sphere, which you can also find down on snarlingbadger.com. It's available now. If you don't already have it, don't worry. It is pay what you want for that first expansion, because we released it during the pandemic after we released the game, and everybody was like, hey, we like it, but what about solo or co-op play? There's kind of this pandemic going on.
We were like, oh yeah,
And
oh yeah. No, we hadn't
oh
thought of that.
yeah.
Yeah.
So we added that. It's pay what you want, so you can pick it up now. And this then continues on that story. So there's 6 linked adventures in the Oculus Sphere. This has 3 more that add on top of that. Jack Shaw, whoever did the art for the video thumbnail, is killing it. I love Goblin Vince. Well, Jack Shaw, I have good news for you. Who did the art is the person who commented right above you is Stephanie. That's who actually literally did the art. So Stephanie did
Hmm.
the art for the Great Goblin Argle Bargle, as well as our awesome thumbnail for today. So thank you to Stephanie. So there you go. Yes, technically Death Wizards would end with you being the big ultimate baddie instead of facing them. That's right. That's right. You become the
Right.
ultimate bad guy. You become the big bad evil guy. And assumingly from that point get into additional sort of evil nonsensory, right? Like as one would do. Once you become the big bad evil guy, that's when you get to do all the fun stuff, right? That's when the real nonsense begins. But at any rate, this one continues on with the story of the Dimensional Vault and the Oculus Sphere itself and everything related to that. So, yeah, that's kind of... I won't spoil any of the story here because obviously I don't want to do that. I want to let people play through the story and experience it. But yeah, check it out if you're interested. If Reign in Hell is your jam, if you played the Oculus Sphere, or if you just like Reign in Hell but haven't explored it yet, I would recommend you check it out because now you've got a 9 adventure or scenario arc that you can go on there and sort of play through an ongoing story. So there you go. All right, folks, what didn't we answer for you? What haven't we covered as far as everything with Snarl? What other anythings can we answer? There you go. So yeah, Adam, what else do you have? I mean, this was very fun. This is a great... I think this is a really good issue of Snarl. They're very fun to make. We really like making these, so there you go.
I think somebody sent me.
Oh, I had one question on Twitter as well that I will
Yeah,
answer.
I think I did too. Um, let's see here. Lagnus said, "As I'll be asleep, I would like to know how, who, and maybe why you came up with the various mechanics in the Goblin game, such as singing and the other things you can do. Thank you kindly." I mean, it basically came down to what type of goblin game did we want to make? Did we want to make Lord of the Rings goblins who were all despicable little, monsters that were frankly kind of scary, although also kind of inept in some ways, and a lot of bickering and arguing? Or did we want to go with the more cute but also kind of sinister sort of vibe? And that's kind of where I think this came from. Um, yeah, that's mainly kind of where it came from.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's exactly right. Most of the mechanics, like the songs, the dancing, it came from the desire, like I said, those initial guiding principles of wanting to have a game with some fun, with some whimsy. Like goblins, in my mind, are a naturally funny concept. I don't love them as like the sort of mindless, ravaging horde or whatever. Like that just feels
Hmm.
kind of whatever
Hmm.
done. I like them as just kind of funny little characters that bounce around the world and are just like little lunatics basically, right? They just they have screws loose, and
Right.
so sometimes that results in fighting and weird violence, but sometimes it just results in them running around and singing songs and hiding under rocks and stuff, right?
Hmm.
So there you go. Other Dave. Oh, okay, hold on. Okay, so here's some good questions. God Santa, favorite soup? That's a tough question. I'm gonna have to go with probably like a potato with like probably like bacon cheese, like a loaded baked potato soup. I think that's probably my pick. Either that or like a protein packed gluten free Wisconsin cauliflower type of thing.
My wife makes a really good butternut squash soup. It's really good.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Very good. Other Dave says, "Why don't you guys like Space Station Zero anymore?" Oh, Other Dave, you wound me. No, we love Space Station Zero. Clearly the public does too. I think it's probably our best-selling game. But no, we'll do more for Space Station Zero. Trust me,
Well,
we are
we
definitely not.
did
We did, yeah.
we
The
had
first
it.
Snarl had an expansion in it.
First Snarl had expansion for it. We don't. The thing that we don't want to do is make it so that we have to make an expansion for every game as we go, because eventually we'll get to a point where Snarl has, I don't know, 7, 8 different expansions in it, and or add-ons or whatever we want to call them.
Right.
And so we kind of have to pick and choose. So this time, we had Death Wizards and Majestic 13 and Rain in Hell, and didn't have Space Station Zero. Whereas last time we had Space Station Zero and Rain in
Rain in
Hell,
Hell.
but we didn't have Majestic 13 because it had just come out and Death Wizards wasn't even out yet. So yeah.
Right. But don't worry, we will return back to it, Other Dave. We
Hmm.
love
Hmm.
Space Station Zero very much. Okay. And Stephanie said she can help answer art questions. Yeah. So if anybody has any
Hmm.
art
Hmm.
questions, I'm going to go back to one of Stephanie's awesome pieces of art here, real quick. There we go. Just so if people have questions about it, by all means, pop them in there. Robo Warrior. Okay, now is my time. The game sounds amazing. I wanted to ask you guys if you had any thoughts about Trench Crusade. I mean, I think it's amazing. They reached more than $3 million on being a small for their Kickstarter on basically no traditional. I think they're over three now.
No, I mean in 2 weeks, not
In
even the
2 weeks. Yeah,
full.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
They
yeah.
did
It
like a
wasn't even like
15
a
day
30 day.
Kickstarter or
Yeah,
whatever.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah.
And like that's all just on word of mouth, right? Basically, they had very little like traditional advertising or marketing or
I
anything like that.
Yeah, I didn't really see, like, I'm a part of the Trench Crusade Facebook group or whatever. So maybe if you were part of the Trench Crusade Facebook group, then you didn't get to see any sponsored ads or something like that through Facebook advertising, or I'm not sure. Maybe I mean, that would make sense if you're already in the Facebook group. We don't need to advertise you. That could make some sense. But yeah, no, I was very impressed with what they're able to do there on that, and I think that's very cool. Spoiler alert: my Friday video is going to be kind of about that. Um, but I will be very honest. At the end, and again, this is a bit of a spoiler, I only backed it at the $5 level because I personally, for myself, I didn't want a book. You know, like they're making a fancy book and all that kind of stuff with art and lore and all that kind of stuff. And I'm not, but the rules are online, so you can get those, for download for free, which is super smart of them. Um, but I do see myself probably picking up some of the different STLs. I just wasn't able to decide at the time, so I did the $5 thing so that when the whatever they call it, the
Pledge
pledge
manager.
manager or whatever goes live in a next week or the week after, then I'll be able to hopefully have some decision making at that point. I've talked with Sam a little bit about it. He and I are both kind of interested in taking a look at it and maybe playing some stuff together. We'll see how it goes. Um, I think both of us are in a little bit of a space right now where we're not as interested in playing GW games. So if he's interested in this, and the thing is that some of the models are astounding. Like some of them are really good. So I'm very glad to see that. And I think Sam is interested both from a playing aspect and also because he's like, there's some models in there I think I could do some decent work on. So that's I think an interesting thing too. So I'm glad to see it, and I think it's a I don't know. I haven't completely compiled all my ideas yet about whether what this means for the industry, as it were. But
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot to unpack from it. It's not a game that actually interests me specifically. I'll
mhm.
say, like, I don't see myself playing it really. I mean, Tomas is like a really amazing game designer. I respect him deeply as a writer. I think he's one of the better game designers. He's certainly one of my favorite game designers of all time. And I think he's just a really smart guy in general. I want to have him on the show at some point in the future. So I'll probably reach out to him and hit him up. I've talked to him a few times, and I think that I'd love to have him on to just like talk about the game and what he was what he was doing with it and stuff like that. Um, but I it feels like he had a vision and an aesthetic and brought it to life. And I think in the end, when you have a really cool vision and you've got someone who, he works with his team and they really brought it to life in an amazing way where it feels uniform all the way down in that way, right? Like how they're planning it mechanically and aesthetically, as you said, and all of that. Like it feels like it's going to be in sync, and so I think that
I
just
feel
has
like
an
the
appeal to it.
majority of the aesthetics are coming from Mike Francina, who's the artist, the lead artist, I
Yeah,
believe.
yeah, 100%.
Yeah, yeah, and
I'm
and
saying
like
that like
he,
you can feel the simpatico nature of it all, right? Where
oh,
it all is
for sure,
coming together into a
yeah,
unified vision. Yeah.
yeah,
Yep.
I agree.
Let's see. Boo boo boo. Okay. Cygnus said, I don't think you answered my earlier question. Would you consider doing expansions for your mini games, or are they definitely standalone one source games? I think for the most part, those will probably always remain standalone games. I don't think I would really ever do an expansion for any of our mini games because it would be weird to. It's weird in my mind to say like go back and buy this older zine to get this. But I mean, maybe. I'm not going to say no completely. I would
Sure,
just say
yeah,
it's unlikely.
yeah.
I'll keep
It's
it
not
that
something
easy.
we've really thought about at this point yet.
Yeah, like if I had, I like the reason I say not likely but not no is because if 2 years from now or whatever, like suddenly I'm hit like a truck by an awesome idea for an expansion to the Great Goblin Argle Bargle, then I'm gonna do it. It's that
Hmm.
easy,
Hmm.
right? Like I'm gonna do whatever I think there's something interesting to continue exploring. So I'm not doing it for the mini games for any other reason than most of the time I think the games are pretty like they are whole as we release them. I guess
Sure.
is what I would say. Okay. Um, more cyberpunk. Ugg says more cyberpunk, cyberpunk goblins, cyberpunk necromancers. Got it. Got it. Well, Ugg. I don't know. Stay tuned for sometime in the future, maybe. We'll see. Okay. The
Robert asks, any plans in the future for a bigger war game such as 40K or Age of Sigmar?
no.
I would say no. Like
Yeah.
they tell you, never say never, but I'm not going to say never, but I'm going to say no. Because there's plenty of games out there like that, obviously, including the two you've mentioned, but also because I don't know. I mean, you're an army player. You like to play Age of Sigmar, and that's not a skirmish game.
No.
But I am predominantly just a skirmish player, so I'm not interested in there's a lot of different types of games out there we could make, but we don't make a game that we're not interested in. Like there are probably games we could make that would sell better. We knew that where we had a pretty good idea that Majestic 13 was not necessarily going to be a game that sold all that well. Fantasy, yeah, that's cool. Sci-fi stuff, people like to buy that. Something that's like kind of X-Files, using a term that really only if you're into weird UFO stuff you actually get the joke. Like, the whole concept behind it, calling it Majestic 13, is because within UFO conspiracy theories, there's a concept that's been going around since the 80s, that there was this group that was started in the late 40s or early 50s by Truman, I think, that was called Majestic 12.
Right.
And it was 12 men who had been picked to try to figure out what's going on with this alien menace. And some of them were military and some of
Figure
them were
out this whole
scientists.
UFO thing, boys.
Exactly, yeah. And I was like literally in the kitchen, I don't know, messing around doing dishes or something like that. And I was thinking about it. I'm like, if there's 12 of them, if they ever do a vote, they could split the vote pretty easily. They should make 13 of them. And as soon as I was like, oh, Majestic 13, that's where it literally the game came from, that idea. So that being said, we were unsurprised when it doesn't necessarily sell as well as the other games. But yeah, we're not out to necessarily make games that are like, well, this is the next big thing and line goes up. We're like making games that we enjoy and that we hope other people will enjoy. And it is what it is. So for us, because this is not our day jobs, really, it's got to be something that we enjoy doing.
That's right. That's right. Which one of us is Argle and which one of us is Bargle? I think I'm Argle. That's what I'll say. I think you're probably Bargle.
Sure.
That seems right to me for reasons I can't completely explain.
Gotcha.
Let's see. Questions about the art. Okay. Good. Would you two consider making one of your games into a video game? Oh boy. Do we have to do it, or does somebody come to us and ask us to license our game? Because if someone is willing to write me a check to use our intellectual property for a video game, I am willing to accept that check. Okay, if that's if
willing to have a conversation about accepting a check, for sure.
Yes.
Yeah.
If you're asking me, will I code a video game? No, definitely not. That is not going to be what I am capable of doing. But no, sure. I mean, wouldn't that be an amazing thing? Like, I'd love to see something turned into a video game. But yeah,
sure.
Even big companies struggle to get people to adapt their war games into video games. Which is crazy to me. It feels like video game companies would be just buying up all of the IP. Honestly, the same way like Hollywood studios do for this stuff. Like, why think of your own concepts when you have people doing dry runs and building popular IPs? I truly don't understand the video game industry. Like, we can make this new thing. We have to start everybody from zero on. Okay. Yeah. Well, I mean, I guess because mostly they're just actually making sequels to existing properties now. So they gave up on originality a long time ago.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's a lot of, licensed stuff and things like that in video games. And we see it in tabletop games too. I mean, Mantic loves to do licensed stuff. Most recent being the Halo game. There's obviously there was Star Wars Legion, well, still is Star Wars Legion, Star Wars Shatterpoint, like all these different things. Ash and I from Guerrilla Miniature Games had a conversation back in March.
Yeah, but that's going the wrong way around, right?
Well,
like, my point is, okay, like, you're gonna release a video game. Why not just like go pay Corvus Belli to buy the Infinity property for as rights to make a video game out of it? There's already a set. You already have some established group of players. Like, I can't believe we waited that long between like Space Marine 1 and Space Marine 2. It's crazy to me that there was that amount of time in between those two games. And like Space Marine 2 was like wildly successful.
That I don't know why there was so much time in between the two. I'm sure that someday there'll be some sort of little mini doc on YouTube that'll explain it. But for right now, I don't know why it took, 12, 13 years in between games.
Yeah, something like that. It was a really long time.
But yeah, I don't know. I think that the video game companies don't want to take a risk on something just because it's got an audience. Like, because it needs to be a big enough audience to make it worth their while. Because you really gotta,
I mean, if
you gotta hang your hat on it.
You're starting with like an original property. You're starting from zero audience.
Isn't this right? Exactly.
Zero? I don't know.
But then you're also like, basically the concept behind licensing is you're basically renting your fans. Because you have to pay, even if it's a smaller company, if somebody had to, if I don't know, Take-Two Interactive, I don't even know if they're a thing anymore. If they came to us and said, man, we sure do want to make a Space Station Zero game, they would have to pay us. And every time that they would sell the game or whatever, we would get some sort of, shekels. And that's just a thing that they have to put into their bottom line and track. Whereas if they could just come up with the idea, or better yet, steal the idea from us, and but just make it intellectually slightly different, then well, heck, that would save them all kinds of money. So
Yeah. Cygnus says, which Snarling Badger game would make the best video game? I mean, Space Station Zero, easily.
I think so, probably. Yeah.
Yeah, it's not hard. Like, it's a confined, cloistered roguelike. Like, it itself took a lot of inspiration from video games, right?
Oh yeah, we were definitely like when we were working on that game, like part of the initial design document, I think the word roguelike was in there. Like that was what we were looking at. Yeah.
Yep. So I mean, like,
Which
it would
is why
translate
it's
back
also
so.
one of our harder games, I think, too.
Yeah. Yeah. You're not wrong, Angzar. You're not wrong. That is how we end up with ET. So I don't want to. I don't want to.
Sure. Yeah.
I don't want our game to be an ET. No one does. Yes, absolutely. The red square can fight the green square. Whoa. Yeah, exactly. All right. Let's see. Okay. Oh, Cygnus had asked, what's the craziest game mechanic you considered and why didn't it make the cut? Sure, I can tell you. It was for Death Wizards. Originally in my head, the way that the heroes were going to work was they were going to have variable stats, not based on like the way that it ended up where it's like the rating of the hero, but instead you were going to just like, you were going to have a card for the hero. Imagine that you've got, like, imagine in your head, you're sitting the card down on the table for the hero. And there's like an open spot that looks like a dice. Like on the play sheet for Rain and Hell, where it looks their spaces look like little squares that look like a D6 and a space looks like a D12. And so they would have the same spaces that looked like dice. So one's could be a D6, one could be a D12, and so on. And then when you generated the heroes, you would then roll the dice, and whatever it came up, that was the stat for that hero in that spot, right? So imagine
Kinda
they
like
had
when you roll your stats for D&D character.
Yeah, exactly. And like that was kind of what was in my head, right? Well, the heroes roll their stats, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so you could imagine it being like, okay, this guy has a D6 in this stat and a D12 in this stat and a D10 in this stat or something, whatever, right? So you just roll those 3 dice and then you set that, like whatever they roll to, you just set it on the card and then go. And I just thought that was like the coolest idea, right? The problem with it is it does not work. It just does not work, which became very apparent when I started like writing the rules. And I was like, wait a minute. If this hero's combat or whatever score, effectively, can be anything between a 1 and a 12, right? And I have no way to control what it is. And you generate like D3 plus 1 of these guys. Well, you know, like what happens on the even one standard deviation off the middle, where 3 of them end up at like 9, 10, and 12, and you're like, oh god, and they just wreck you. They just come in and just, what's up, nerds? Oh, it's time. You picked the wrong town.
It's the same reason why it's better to have in a lot of games, like even in role-playing games, like, yeah, every once in a while you have that amazing roll. Oh my goodness, almost all my stats are in 17s and 18s, but it's pretty rare,
right?
You know? But when you have fewer stats and then also have the possibility of some of them being supernaturally high almost because of
using
that.
one dice it's not generating a bell curve, but it is
right,
instead
exactly.
Even,
right. A D12 is a pretty swingy thing in comparison to say 2D6. And so because of that, that definitely could be one of those feels bad moments. You know, it's kind of like in Warcry a little bit. Sam and I call it getting Warcried, where there's times when you start the mission, and you're like, okay, well, we can just start again because this, I can't do this, and you know, because you do that kind of random rolling or the random card flips and stuff like that to pick.
Yep.
Well, okay. You guys are super fast and can fly. The point of this mission is to get the object off the table, and it starts on your side or whatever the deal is, you know. Right. And you're like, whoops, okay. So you have to just take that as it is, but it's not as much fun in a game like this where you're going through all the setup stuff and then, oh, well, shoot. Now we have to either try to beat these guys who are way too tough for us or just decide to start over. So.
Right. And by the way, the opposite of that wouldn't be fun either. What happens when it's one standard deviation on the other side? It's like the 3 paladins are here to defend their village, and they're like, I'm combat 1, and I'm combat 2, and I'm combat 4.
Yeah.
And it's just like, what? These guys are pushovers, right? They just,
I don't know. I
It's
don't
just
know
like
which edge
dying
of
when
my
you
I
hit.
don't know which side of the sword to use. Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
it's just like neither one of those is a fulfilling experience. So that was one of those things where, like, in my head when I initially conceived of it, I was like, oh, this is gonna be so cool, right? And also, by the way, just like usability, like this occurred to me too as I was writing it. From like a UX perspective, it's terrible because you'd have to have the card. It would mean that the game aids were now required, or
Right.
we'd have to make them printable or something for free,
Yeah.
which is fine. Like we could do that. But you'd have to have the card. You'd have to play in that way. And you'd roll the dice and set them on the table and need to keep them there on that number for the whole time. And like, yeah, because no one's ever bumped a gaming table and knocked
Right.
dice askew,
I mean, we
right?
did that with Rain and Hell. I mean, as far as the both the power dice or the soul dice, I mean,
Mm-hmm.
and also the for the initiative and stuff like that. And yeah, every once in a while something gets bumped, and that happens. But I think when it's on cards, it's
Right.
even a bit more difficult. I know that like with a game like Steel Rift, like when you play with the normal actual Steel Rift sheet, it's all about just putting dice on there so you can kind of track your armor and things like that. But you also don't have that many. You've got, I don't know, 5, maybe 6 models. And it's on a sheet and you usually kind of keep it off to the side. But with the cards and all that kind of stuff, it's I love the concept of that kind of thing, having all these dice, you're tracking different things, and it starts to get almost a little bit video gamey because you can track so many states and all that kind of stuff, and you're kind of doing this bookkeeping, but you're doing it with dice, so you're not writing things, and it's a little bit easier than you would think with do it with pen and paper, until somebody bumps the table real hard, and it screws everything up. So, um, yeah, if we were smart, if well, we're relatively smart. If we were smart at making apps, then having some sort of app that could maybe track that stuff would also be useful. But that's a whole different kettle of fish, and I don't know if we want to go down that road or not.
That's right. So, at any rate, there you go. Grandberg said, any thoughts on a Snarling Badger compendium later? A single tome of your games? I don't know. I mean,
Mm,
like, I'm not gonna say no. It could happen someday. Like, perhaps. I'm always I'll tell you the thoughts that go in my head and what I struggle with that. Like, I'll just be
hmm
pretty open with everyone. Is like, it seems like a neat idea. Like, sure. On one hand, my some part of me is like, I don't know, that feels kind of like a cash grab. Like I'm repackaging and reselling the same thing over and over again,
Yep.
right? Which like is somewhat true and somewhat not. I don't know. Like part of me is like, would anyone even buy it? What if it was like hardbound and we made it nice and stuff like that? We couldn't move to like color art because most of the art is rendered in black and white for these
Right.
games.
Yeah.
And so like it's not like it's gonna suddenly become color. So even if it was just like some beautiful hardback tome, it's still mostly black and white art inside. And then like what if somebody picked up 2 of the 4 games? Like are they gonna then buy the collected tome
Right.
and get like complete duplicates of 2 of the games? I don't know. And then that leads me to say like, well, but what if I put new content in it? It's like, okay, well, but then if I put new content into it, right? Like let's imagine I actually write something net new for it.
hmm
Then it's the other problem, right? Which is
I already bought this, but now there's new stuff that
now
I
you're
don't have
making me buy
access.
it again,
Right.
right?
Exactly.
And I really don't want to be sort of GW where I'm just like,
I'm glad
it's
you
like,
said it, not me for once.
no,
But
I
yeah,
mean, like, I don't want to
exactly.
be that guy selling reselling
Right.
new rules every 3 years or something, right? Like that's not our
hmm
goal. We want to
Yeah.
make fun games that people want to play, right? Like I want you to buy our games, but I want you to buy our
Sure.
games because you think they're cool and fun and you enjoy playing them with your friends. And like,
And
there
not
you
because
go.
we made a new edition. And well, if you want to be up to date, you got to buy the a new book or whatever. Yeah, exactly. That's why when people ask us all the time, you're like, well, why is this game dead? You guys don't make it anymore. And I'm like, I assure you, you can buy it right now. Like that's the
Yeah.
benefit of doing it the way we're doing it in, an inexpensive, accessible black and white insides, soft cover, all that kind of stuff means that we can do it in print on demand, means that we can have people in the UK and EU who get the book quicker because it gets printed over there. But if you buy it over here in US, it gets printed over here because there's multiple places where it gets
And now in
printed.
Australia too.
Well, that's still it's in progress, but yes, that is also hopefully very soon to be the standard as well. And that's the benefit. We're trying to make things accessible, and I don't want to get into the business of making you know, I don't know, desirable books that you buy because you want to covet them and stuff. I want a book that you print it out and you have it, like this, or I want a book that you buy, and maybe eventually it gets kind of beat up and worn. I just was watching a video of oh, what's his name, Trent, from Miscast. I was watching one of his videos recently. He's been talking a lot about Mordheim a lot, and he's got a copy of Mordheim that has seen better days. It is ragged, you know what I mean? And that's cool. Now, the downside is you can't buy a new one if yours gets all wet or finally all the pages fall out or whatever. But with ours, if you want to, you could. So, and if you bought it from us, very probably you also got the PDF. So if you just decided, well, I've worn out the book, I will now transfer it to my fancy iPad or my laptop or something like that, and then you're still, not behind the eight ball and without the game. We don't want to, I don't know. I want to make games. I don't want to make books. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. And like my, Stephen Powell said, sounds like a thing 5-10 years when you have a large catalog, which lets everyone buy everything all at once. Perhaps a slight discount. Cygnus said maybe a special run with prepayments for the Snarling Badger 10-year anniversary. Other Dave said, down the road, I would buy an omnibus edition of Snarling Badger rules that incorporated expansions for the game, if only for ease of use. And yeah, like, I could see something like that. Like, where at some point in, like, another 5 years of doing this or whatever, or however long we're going on until we both drop dead, I assume, is basically how long we're going to continue this on.
Probably.
It'll get to the point where there's enough games that they're, like, doing some sort of super omnibus that, like, puts together the expansions for snarls and stuff like that into a single source could have a lot of value. So that's why I said I don't know. Like, I'll say we don't have any immediate plans for it, but it's the kind of thing that could happen down the road as the sort of catalog grows, because we continue to want to hopefully bring you exciting, fun games over time. So there you go. All right, folks. Hey, look, we've been going on for a little while here. If anybody's got any final questions, drop them in the chat now. But I think we're gonna call it. Adam, hey, thank you, sir. Much appreciated.
Absolutely.
I'll do a final pitch here. Don't forget to hit like, hit subscribe, do all those things. Also, don't forget, down in the description, you can find the link to snarlingbadger.com, where you can find all the information on Snarl 2024, including a little playthrough battle report, some deeper information. You can download the play sheet. Snarl 2024 contains the Great Goblin Argle Bargle, a new standalone game that can be played from 2 to 4 players, where you and your friends have some crazy goblin fun, sing goblin songs, and do goblin dances. That is also contains expansions for Death Wizards, Majestic 13, and Reign in Hell. The Reign in Hell expansion being a new 3-adventure linked story campaign that continues on from the Oculus Sphere. Landon said, am I crazy, or did you guys mention a bundle for your games earlier? If so, where? We don't have a bundle for them, but you can find everything linked down on the site. Maybe that's what we were saying. So yeah, like all of the games are linked down there. If you go to Snarling Badger, you'll find the links to everything down there. We don't have any bundle for all of them together.
No.
Okay. Hey, no problem, Robo Warrior. We were happy to answer your questions. Absolutely. Stephanie does a goblin dance. Very good. Stuart says he completed his custom board for Reign in Hell. Now he just has to find some minis. He didn't think 95% of his collection is sci-fi until he bought all the books. That'd be funny. I agree. She's my favorite too, Noops. But yeah, check everything out. It's only $8 for the 36-page PDF. You can find everything down below. Do check it out. We really appreciate all the support. There's what it looks like when it's printed out. Bada boom. There you go. Thank you to Stephanie, who's been here the whole time. She did all of the awesome art for the Great Goblin Argle Bargle. She really brought the game to life. We are grateful to her. As I said, I'll put her Twitch down there below, so you can go give her a follow over on Twitch. Stephanie is awesome, and again, thank you, Stephanie, for all the amazing art and everything you did with the book. But thank you all for watching. We really appreciate it. If you've got any questions about this book or any of our previous games we didn't address tonight, just drop them down in the comments below. Don't forget to check all of the links down there, including snarlingbadger.com. There's also like affiliate links to pick up your hobby supplies. There's a Patreon down there. And there is, of course, a merch store down there as well. Now, it just has my stuff. Doesn't have the Snarling Badger stuff, but that'll be coming too. Don't worry.
There is a Snarly Badger merch store. It just doesn't
That's right.
have. It has all the stuff for Rain in Hell and also Space Station Zero, so you can pick up stuff from there as well.
Check that out as well. So, at any rate, thank you all so much for watching. Thank you to everybody who had awesome questions, comments, all of that. It is really appreciated. Adam, thank you, buddy, for being awesome as always.
Absolutely, same to you.
And for all of you out there, thank you very much. We'll see you next Wednesday.